I told you I'm going to be doing another review this Sunday. Well, here it is. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. You're tuning into the one and only channel with your lovable host, Danny K. What's happening? So, I got to be honest. Often, I take time to just sit here in our woods and listen to silence. Seriously. Getting out of the city and realizing and being out here, you really realize just how much noise pollution there is in a big city or even a small city, any kind of a city, right? It could be a village. When you're out in the countryside, there's silence. It's about 9 a.m. now, 9:30. And yes, people are starting to get up. Every now and then you'll see a car off in the distance driving down the road. But for the most part, it's just quiet. And what do you hear? You hear the birds chirping. You hear bees flying around. I mean, heck, sometimes I could swear I can hear like insects crawling around. That's how quiet it is. The dogs love it. We love it out here. What does that have to do with today's show and episode? Quite a bit, actually. Dynamic range. Silence. The more silent you can make a product, the more quiet you can make a product. When sound does come up, if everything else is designed the right way, the dynamics are going to be that much more explosive, bombastic. The difference between soft and loud is going to be that much more dramatic, which is what? That's music, right? So stay tuned for the review of the MTRS. Actually, I should say it this way, of the EMMlabs MTRS Stereo amplifier. It's like I always say, when you're spending this kind of money on high-end audio, premium high-end audio in the price bracket of the EMMlabs MTRS Stereo amp, I think the one thing that people always look for is they want to know what they're getting. Who are they supporting? Who are they buying from? Is it some up-and-coming engineer that's starting to cut his teeth in high-end audio, ultra high-end audio, and it's like the first big circuit he's designed? Or are you going to go with someone, or is it going to be someone who is a professional, who's got a resume that's 1.5 miles long or more? Someone like Ed Meitner, right? And I think in this case, Ed Meitner obviously really needs no introduction. Even though he's primarily known in today's day and age for his digital work, with SACD, with DSD. And of course, that's reflected in the portfolio of products that they have. What's not so highly known, just because it's not really been popularized as much, is his work on the analog side, right? I mean, he created he was the primary designer for the legendary Olive analog mixing console in the 70s that, as a matter of fact, studios today still want to get their hands on and are looking for. It's that good. He worked on the first, big amplifier design of the era, the MTR 101, that's still coveted today. They're still popping up on Audiogon for folks to buy. The IDAT and BIDAT digital converters that Stereophile and Harry Pearson went completely batshit crazy over back in the day, right, when digital was coming to be. They made the best of components for forever and a half. And of course, today, now, the MTRS Stereo amp. So if you're into spec speeds and feeds, this channel is not going to be your go-to, right? There's plenty of other places out there where you can look up all the measurements and stuff like that. I will drop a link below to the Stereophile review that came out not too long ago. That was completely measured. They measured the amp, etc. It's a beast. It's about 300 watts at 4 ohms, which means it, basically will drive any speaker that you can think of in any reasonably sized room to beyond insane loudness levels. It's a behemoth. It's, I think, 21 by 23 by 11 are the dimensions, and it weighs a whopping 180 pounds. So seriously, it's freaking heavy. Like 2 people, me and a friend of mine, had to lift this thing and get it up into Studio A, which is where I'm shooting from. So welcome to Studio A again. We're not quite there yet. We're almost there yet. Still working on a couple of things, the acoustic panels, etc., but in due time. So, of course, the big question on everyone's mind is, what does it sound like? Give me the skinny, right? And as usual, I think, particularly in this price range, and particularly with products of this pedigree, perspective is the mother of all clarity, right? What do I mean by that? I think you're obviously not going to compare this to a entry-level high-end amp or a mid-level high-end amp. This is going to be compared to the bee's knees. What else is out there? Who are the competitors? Who are the best of the best? Your Nagras, your D'Agostinos, your Griffons, your Audio Research, etc., right? Fortunately for me, I've actually owned what I consider to be the finest amplifier ever, which is the EINSTEIN OTL Silver Bullet Mark II, which is a Circlotron-based OTL amp, output transformerless tube amp. The challenge with it, even though I think it's incredibly transparent to the source, it's incredibly musical, the challenge with it is it simply doesn't have enough power for when you really want to jam, right? Particularly with lower impedance and lower sensitivity speakers. The Devore 096s that I have play fantastic with it. The Wilson Sasha V's, you can get them cranking, but you kind of have to keep in mind that the amp at that point only produces about 30-40 watts of power. So in time, as my sort of tastes had progressed, etc., the other amp that was in my system for a very long time was the Macintosh MC611. I always wanted to own one, always was curious to having one. And, it's definitely a completely different sonic perspective to the EINSTEIN. It's very much on the warmer, syrupy sound side of the neutral equation, if you want to look at it that way. And to varying degrees, all these other amps that I've heard, auditioned, played with, had in my system for a while, reviewed on other channels and other magazines, the Boulder amp, I think it was the 1100 series, D'Agostino, the MX400, I think, the Big Nagras, the Griffon I've spent quite a bit of time with. And, to varying degrees, these amp all fall in different buckets, right? They are either incredibly lean, incredibly detailed, hyper detailed, I would say, like the Boulders. I think that falls right into that category, which is not necessarily my cup of tea. It kind of gives you like a very lean and, presentation of, hey, this is what's in the music. And it's, as clear as you can make it sound, which is not particularly my cup of tea. The other amps kind of fall in the middle. They're, the Nagras, the D'Agostinos, they're on the warmer side, in my opinion, of course. Your opinion may completely be different than mine. And the Macintosh is even warmer than that. Again, going back to my EINSTEIN OTL, that to me was very neutral, but very musical. And so I've had a hard time finding a solid state based amp that's got shove guts power beyond the OTL to raise it to party level and give me that musicality and that neutrality. I found it to be difficult to find an amp like that up until I started playing around with Ed's electronics. And I'll preface this, or I'll wind the clock back a little bit to about 3 years ago when I first got wind of him working on the now famous award-winning EMMlabs DS-EQ1 DS Audio Phono Energizer, which brought me into the fold of EMMlabs, and I've loved it. It's exactly what I'm looking for. It's got that neutrality, but it's got that shove and musicality and punch and dynamics. And so I was really looking forward to the Meitner MTRS, and of course, it's pretty much exactly in the same vein, cut from the same cloth as the DS-EQ1, which is to say, it's wide open, wide bandwidth, neutral, but yet very, very musical. I mean, no matter what I put through its paces, no matter what tracks I played, from the lowest octaves to the highest octaves, from low volume to 90 dB at listening position to 105, 110, 12 dB peaks, which, let's face it, I can only hear for that or listen to that for so long before my ears start to hurt. So I wouldn't advise you to do that. But it's good to know that your amp can play with it. And remarkably, the one thing that I noticed that really stood out was that the tonality and the musicality of the amp does not change depending on frequency range or the volume it's playing at, right? Which again, I think is critical and I think is a little bit more challenging to find. I'm not saying that all these other amps don't sound great. They do, right? The Nagra is, again, on the warmer side of things. For example, the Macintosh, even warmer than that. So when I'm playing something like Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, Dream with Dean, the record that everybody loves, of course, man, you're really getting that syrup. You're getting that schmaltz. It's something else, right? But when you play other kinds of music, it's a little bit too much, right? And so, again, with the MTRS, with the Wilsons, the Sasha V's, it basically has limitless power for all intents and purposes for this room, which is 15 by 30 with 8.5 foot ceilings. It's essentially limitless power, right? I've got it to clip once or twice, handful of times. And even when you're approaching clipping, the tonal characteristic in a musicality doesn't change. It's more of a very sort of soft clip as it approaches the end of its gas, right? The end of its power line. And then you just turn it down and it's still blaringly loud. In fact, I was texting with Amadeus, Ed Meitner's son, who is running marketing and just the face of the company today. I was texting him, I'm like, man, it's amazing how you can blast this thing and, whatever music you want to play, from, dubstep to techno to electronic to ambient, all the stuff in between, it never changes its tonal character. It's supremely musical. The notes, the tones, the warmth of the performer comes through. Not too much, not too little, just spot on, just right. Very similar to the EINSTEIN OTL, in my opinion, but with more power, with more headroom, right? So there's three albums I really kind of want to highlight real quick, other than the ones that you guys have already seen that I've posted up on the link below. So this is a brand new to me, the João Gilberto. This is a Brazilian-only release. And this is a live recording from 1998, so quite a bit of age. Hard to find. I got it through a very good friend of mine, and I'm not going to disclose his name because he's going to get bombarded. This is a triple LP, and I tell you, the intimacy, the presence, the stage aura, you really connect and feel it, and just, gosh, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Very, very intimate recording. Just fantastic. Great, great Joe Agilberto record. Next up, this is a good one. The latest Einstürzende Neubauten record, Alien Pop Music, which is absolutely terrific. This is a double LP, yellow vinyl edition. A little bit different sounding from what you kind of expect or maybe even remember Einstürzende Neubauten to sound like. This is more accessible, I would say. Some of their earlier stuff is, even for myself, it's a little bit out there. But this is very, very accessible. You know, a very dense recording. Comes through with the MTRS in style. You hear the dynamics, very dynamic recording. Absolutely fantastic. And then last but not least, who I want to highlight is, I just need to read it again because I'll mess up her name, Arouge Aftab. So this is her second album. Actually, not second. I think it's even her third album. Absolutely terrific. Just came out. And again, very intimate recording. Very spacious. Lots of spatial cues in this recording. Highly recommend you play this up. Resolution-wise, again, the MTRS, what really draws you into it is that musicality that it has. Where, again, you just get drawn into the music. You feel it. You can sense the playfulness. No matter what tracks you play, whether it's a symphony, etc., or this Arouge Aftab record. So, anyway, again, what does it come to at the end of the day with these amplifiers and the MTRS at $65,000? To me, in my humble opinion, I need to know who I'm spending that money with. That is really important to me, right? Who am I supporting? What do they stand for? Have they been around for a while? Are they going to support your product? Do they have a dealer network, right? Do they attend shows? Are they in the moment? Are they being marketed? Are people talking about it, writing about it, etc., right? And, look, Ed Meitner, big design hero of mine, definitely highly recommend this amplifier. And as with all of these megabuck reviews, listen to it for yourself, right? You're obviously not going to take my word for it. I'm totally aware of that. Go to a dealer, have them play it, and I think you're going to be pretty darn surprised as to how amazing this amp sounds. So anyway, thanks for tuning in as always. Please like and subscribe if this content meant anything to you, if you like this. And like I said, all the links are dropped below for what I was listening to and listening for and comparing to. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Ciao.